Programang ito ay rated SPG. Striktong patnubay at gabay ng magulang ang kailangan. Maaaring may masiselang tema, lengguwahe, karahasan, sexual, horror o droga na hindi angkop sa mga bata.
The coronavirus pandemic. It jolted us to realize that gains made after spending so much planning, effort, cost, and time could diminish considerably and quickly for reasons beyond one's anticipation. That it is much easier to destroy than build. That in a crisis of national proportion that affects every aspect of human life, government needs to have the support and cooperation of the people if it is to succeed in battling the cause of that crisis. That there are people who ask for compassion but show none themselves. That life, after all, is fickle, like the weather. The gains we achieved for the first 3.5 years were put to a test when the pandemic suddenly struck the global community. While I am aware that the road towards a comfortable life would all be far easy if the pandemic had not occurred, and around the rest of the world we suffered. The global scale and socio-economic impact of COVID-19 pandemic has been unprecedented. Yet, in the throes of its global health emergency, we have been able to withstand the headwinds generated by this coronavirus. In this regard, I would like to express my gratitude to all those who made possible the steady supply of food, water, basic utilities of our households. And the provisions of basic social services and financial assistance to our people. Our profound gratitude goes to everyone who helped keep our country's food supply chain running. The valiant soldiers, policemen, and security guards who kept peace and order in our community. The dedicated personnel who kept our essential establishment operational. You showed us kindness and selflessness. You gave us strength. You risked your own lives to serve the greater good in keeping the Filipino spirit of bayanihan. I also thank the men and women of the Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Diseases and the National Task Force Against COVID-19 for all the countless hours it spent to keep the pandemic in check and for all the efforts it made to ensure the safety of our people. Let me also recognize the efforts of the local government units that step up and initiated their own response measures to contain effects of COVID-19 and its impact to their constituents have been impact to its constituents. The shadow says it's a period there. I know exactly the difficulties you are undergoing. I pray that the officials of each LGU in our country, from the barangay to the autonomous regions, would set aside partisan politics and selfish interests to do what is right and good for all. Likewise, I likewise issued Executive Order Number 104, which imposed ceilings on retail prices of at least 133 drugs and medicines, and directed a continuous review of the retail prices of others. This proved to be providential now that we are facing a pandemic. To everyone who helped us in this time of great need, maraming salamat po. Let me say that the strength of a nation rests in the hands of the people acting as one with government. In the pursuit of common goals and objectives, when the pandemic struck, I decided to prioritize life over other considerations according to experts. The intervention that the government had put in place prevented as much as 1.3 to 3.5 million infections. To me, even if the numbers were much lower, it would still be and would have been worth the sacrifice we made. Buhay muna bago lahat. We initially encountered difficulties ramping up our testing capacity. We now have 93 accredited testing laboratories nationwide, and we are aiming to conduct 1.4 million tests by end of July and ensure a quick turnaround time of 48 to 72 hours. Under the Social Amelioration Program, we allotted 2.5 billion or to 2.5 billion for poor and low-income households who were affected during this pandemic, who thrive on a no work, no pay arrangement. Admittedly, our implementation of the Social Amelioration Program was not perfect, and some opportunists turned crisis into opportunity. We will catch up with you sooner than you think. We came up with the COVID-19 Adjustment Measures Program, extended financial assistance to over 650,000 affected individuals in the formal sector, 110 OFWs abroad, and almost 83,000 repatriated OFWs were also provided temporary wage employment to displace marginal workers through the TUPAD project. Our indigent senior citizens were also provided with a stipend for the rest of the semester of the current year. This health emergency stretched government's resources to its limits. In response to the Office of the President, worked closely with Congress for the quick passage of the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act. May I again reiterate my thanks to you, the men and women of Congress, for the effort you invested in passing that law. I hope that we can get some or the same treatment of clarity, purpose, and the fastness to support the passage of the Bayanihan Recover to Act as One, which is supplement funds for recovery and response against the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. We must facilitate the country's economic recovery. I call on Congress to fast-track the passage of the proposed measure such as the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives Enterprises or CREATE Act. This immediately cuts the corporate income levy from the current 30 to 25% and give government flexibility to grant a combination of fiscal and non-fiscal incentives, among others. The Financial Institutions Strategic Transfer, or First Act, will set up mechanisms allowing banks and other financial institutions to dispose of and transfer non-performing assets and loans to asset management companies similar to the special purpose vehicles. Our economic managers have seen infrastructure investment as an effective tool to help spur high growth, attract investments, create jobs, and achieve financial inclusion for all Filipinos. The DBP has resumed the construction of the North Luzon Expressway Harbor Link, the NLEX SLEX connector, the Cavite-Laguna Expressway, the Metro Manila Skyway Stage 3, the R1 Bridge Project, the Tarlac-Pangasinan-La Union Expressway Project, and the Subic-Freeport Expressway Project, to name a few. To realize the maximum benefit from the country's investments, the infrastructure projects under the Build, Build, Build program, which are labor and capital intensive, are not mere springboards for the country's swift recovery pandemic. They are economic benefits to be distributed to all corners of the country and push sustainable stability in the urban centers, particularly Manila. The TESCA launched online mode of livelihood and skills training. There are 71 free online training to help upskill trainees for the right opportunities. I asked TESDA to come up with special training programs to retool our OFWs so they can find employment opportunities here and at home. I am also calling on the CHED for scholarship programs for the qualified dependents of our OFW. I direct the Department of Agriculture and DTI to come up with the agribusiness and entrepreneurship projects to help displaced OFWs rebuild their livelihood. Further, I ask the Land Bank and other government financial institutions to continue providing low-interest loans to our OFW. Sa mga kababayan ko na naghihirap sa ibang bansa, nandito na ang inyong gobyerno para matulungan kayo at inyong mga pamilya, lalo na sa panahong ito. The government will intensify its efforts to help businesses, especially micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, by providing responsive government assistance and services capitalization and business operation support, as we adapt to the next normal. Nananawagan po ako sa ating mga lessors. Nananawagan po ako sa ating mga lessors. Malasakit at bayanihan po ang sana ang ipairalin natin ngayon. This is not the time to drive away laces. During normal times, they were the primary source of your income stream. Now, it's time to be fair and compassionate. Come up with an amenable arrangement with your tenants. Huwag po natin silang pagtabuyan, tanggalin ang tubig, kuryente at bubong. Commercial establishments are requested to give grace periods to allow deferment of payments, especially for MSMEs that were forced to close down during the quarantine period. Let us help them recover. We pump prime the recovery and rehabilitation of the MSMEs. The DTI to the Small Business Corporation set up the Philippine 1 billion COVID assistance to restart enterprises or CARES program to provide zero-interest loans for MSMEs affected by the pandemic as of July 10, 2020. Over 2,600 loans applications worth more than 182.5 million have been approved. We are optimistic that this initiative will help our MSMEs stabilize and recover from their losses. I also enjoin the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and the banks operating in the country to provide regulatory relief for our MSMEs and allow loan payment extension without incurring penalties and charges. We need your help to prevent the collapse of companies saddled with accumulated amortization and payables caused by closure of their businesses at the height of the strict quarantine periods. As we embark on this effort towards inclusive recovery, we should acknowledge that all forms of government support will go to naught if the new MSMEs do not thrive because of lack of consumer support. Ito ang panahon para suportahan natin ang ating mga kababayan na nagnegosyo at gumawa ng mga produktong sariling atin. In the same manner, in tourism and recreation industries, which are among the hardest hit by the pandemic, count on our full support while we slowly try to put the fun back in your local travels. The national government agencies and LGUs must harmonize their policies to boost tourism, ensuring everyone's well-being. We enjoin our people to help boost the economy by traveling locally. Local na lang. Once the necessary system are in place. The DOST offers its enterprise technology upgrading program to enable businesses to access training that will help them transition to online and contactless operation. Now more than ever, we need to protect our consumers. I direct the Department of Trade and Industry to ensure the empowerment of Filipinos on consumer rights and coordinate strategies between public and private organizations in building a fair, safe, resilient, and sustainable economy. There are welcome developments for commerce and industry, but major economic activities take place in borderless environment with the meager regulatory controls. They expose consumers to various risks related to security, data, privacy, and misrepresentation. We must patrol the country's cyberspace and enforce online consumer and data protection and privacy laws. We must run after online scammers and those undermining the people's trust on the online transactions. We must continue to protect Filipinos in the normal and remind the world that we are responsible stewards of data. I am committed to protect both physical and digital lives of our law-abiding countrymen. The national government shall lead the way in our transition to online systems. I reiterate my call for all government instrumentalities to implement systems that shall make physical queuing a thing of the past. Panahon na para mawala na ang pila para mapagsilbihan ang gobyerno ng walang kahirapan para sa tao. The DILG, DBM, and the ARTA, along with all agencies and instrumentalities of government, are hereby directed to make full possible services available online. We need to adjust and adapt a paperless type of business and work performance. We need e-governance. E-governance are people with the services they need and the comfort of their homes in the workplaces. It will enable us bureaucracy to better transition into the new normal and cut red and minimize red tape. Until the COVID-19 vaccine is available, I will not allow the traditional face-to-face teaching or learning unless the risk of exposure to the sickness are eliminated. I cannot and will not put to rest the health and lives of our students and teachers. About 2 weeks ago, I seem to have said that I would allow the face-to-face classes to resume. But we were talking actually of January, because my thinking is that by September we would have the vaccine. How to get it from the producers or from other governments is really something which we have to deal with, because everyone, it's a global need, and everyone will go for it. But let me just mention it in passing that about 4 days ago, I made a plea to President Xi Jinping that if they have the vaccine, can they allow us to be one of the first, or if it's needed, if we have to buy it, that we will be granted credit so that we can normalize as fast as possible. Life that is lost is lost forever. Courses that are not substantial can be supplemented. Education that is delayed can be recovered. We must implement online learning, modular learning, and TV and radio-based broadcasts, which students coming from different backgrounds can avail. DepEd will provide the printed modules for those who cannot afford online learning. In support of the learning continuity program through blended learning, we plan to increase the number of schools with ICT equipment in the coming months. The DepEd and the DITC are building up the public education network or PEN that will connect all public schools and DepEd offices nationwide. We will prioritize the connection of all last-mile schools and those with no electricity.